All right. Hey, everybody. So I just wanted to pipe in and have a little conversation with you today. And we had a great business retreat where we really talked about our message and kind of the mission of what we want to accomplish. And through that, I spent a lot of time thinking about just about inclusion and the society that we have right now. And I really never understood how we want to include everyone, but not really everyone. There are parades and protests. It seems like every weekend there's just so much discontent, and so many groups are trying to be included, and we're trying to include so many groups. And I think that's wonderful because, frankly, I don't care who you are. I don't care who your spouse is. I don't care what gender you identify with. And I don't even care who you worship as long as your heart is good. I believe firmly that the decisions we make here on earth will be judged by a higher power. And that's not my job. My job isn't to judge you. Your job isn't to judge me. Our job isn't to judge one another. But I think that there's a group of people that we have forgotten with all of the protests and the inclusion of different groups. And, there's no parades for this group. No one's protesting on a continuous basis for this group. No one's screaming at legislators to increase funding, and there's no threats from lobbyists to withhold votes in DC if changes aren't made. I'm not talking about some nomadic creature who lives under a rock or some person we've never heard of. I'm talking about people who live in your community and in my community. I'm talking about people with disabilities. And I did a little research this weekend, and according to the World Bank website, there's approximately 1 billion people in the world that have a disability of some kind. And of those billion people, there's 110 to 190 million people who have a significant disability. And that number is mind-blowing to me. Let me break that down and give you a little perspective. The Rehabilitation Research and Training Center on Disabilities recently published a document of statistics and demographics. And in this study, they shared that in 2016, almost 13% of the US population has a disability, a diagnosed disability. Remember, there's many people who don't have a disability diagnosed who may be impacted, but 13% of our US population has a diagnosed disability. They also shared that the Hispanic population is approximately 18%, and the African American population is about 13%. So that means the number of individuals with disabilities is about equal to the number of African American people in the US. And if that doesn't hit you hard, I want you to do a little math here. We're going to do a little math. We're going to break that down. So 13% means what? 13 in 100 people, right? So every 13 people out of 100 has a disability. Every 6.5 out of 50, every 3.25 out of 25. Now, take that the average classroom in the US, elementary classroom, is 24 kids. That means that in a classroom, there is likely to be 3 students at least who has a diagnosed disability. Now, that number seems high if you are involved in school system and you look around a classroom. You're not necessarily seeing kids who look physically disabled or who have a different appearance, because many disabilities are invisible. But it's important to understand that invisible does not mean non-impactful. An invisible disability can be painful, it can be debilitating, and it can be horrific for a family or the person or the person diagnosed. So you may not be able to see it, but understand that a disability does not always have to be visible to be impactful. For me, in my home, we deal with significant disability or a significant disability, and it's quite visible. And I'm going to tell you, it's hard. It is freaking hard. And I don't want any of my positive posts or my happy selfies to fool you. This is not easy, y'all. This is difficult. But while it's difficult, it's so very worth it. I mean, don't get me wrong. It is crazy, crazy worth it. My child, my children are such a blessing to me, to people who know and love them, and to the world. But this is hard. I'm just learning to navigate the system of services for adults. My son just turned 20, and I was a special ed teacher. I was a special education district administrator. Say that 5 times real fast. So I really had that school thing down. I knew the laws. I knew what I could advocate for. I knew how to navigate meetings. I knew that system. But this adult services thing is a whole new ballgame. Y'all, the services are lacking. There isn't enough money to provide for quality staff to help and support these individuals. And the programs, even with the best of intent, are struggling to create engagement and purposeful connections to the community. It's hard. Here's where we're at in society. We have a group of baby boomers, right? Baby boomers are now reaching an age where they need support. They need help. They're living long lives. They're healthy. And yet we have a group of individuals with significant disabilities, a large group, as you look at those numbers that I just shared, that also are living long, happy lives. But yet we have this bucket of money that's small. And there are so many needy hands pulling money out of that bucket. So what do? That has to be a conversation that we must continue having, and we need to be louder with our conversations because we need to do better. That's it. We need to do better. I'm just embarking on this journey, and I'm going to be speaking and sharing and writing and screaming to the rooftops to anybody who will listen to me about this. And I'm going to share that along the way. And I hope some of you invite me into your churches and your parent groups and your organizations so I can speak more to this. And I don't know the answer yet. I really don't. I don't know if it's a parade to bring awareness. I don't know if we need to adopt an icon and splash it on sweatshirts and t-shirts and billboards. I don't know if it's protests. I don't know if shutting down highways to make officials take notice is what we need to do. I don't know. But it's time that we demand more funding, better options, and acceptance. My child, your child, they deserve to be able to go shopping without feeling shame. My child deserves to live a life of purpose. He was created with a purpose. My child deserves to go to church and worship, regardless if he is loud and regardless if he is obnoxious. I don't care. He is a child of God, and he deserves that opportunity. He deserves a beautiful life of acceptance like every other person, like you, like me, like every person with a disability or without a disability. We as a society cannot fail the most vulnerable of people. We must do better. And that's my goal, is to help us do better. See you next time.